The Real Estate Photography Podcast is brought to you by tourbuzz.net, high-definition virtual tour and photograph hosting, now with interactive floor plans. Sign up for your free trial today. Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Photography Podcast with Mike Muriello. Today we have a post-production tip as well as a new feature in a software that we use all the time, Lightroom 3. Now, Lightroom 3 has added a new adjustment option in the Develop module, which is the Lens Corrections panel. And this Lens Corrections panel allows us to fix barrel, pincushion distortion, vignetting, chromatic aberration, as well as vertical and horizontal adjustments. These are all adjustments we're used to making in PT Lens or DxO Optics. Now, Photoshop prior to CS5 had an ability similar to this, but it was on a very elementary level. Adobe has put this into Camera Raw, and now we can use it in both Lightroom 3 and Photoshop. So it's a really, really big improvement. And I wanted to give an example of a photo that would need something like this. Now, off the cuff, I just read one of the comments on YouTube on the podcast, and they said, hey, could you at the beginning of each podcast say what camera and what lens you're using? So I'll do that real quick. This is a D700, and I'm using a Sigma 24-70, and I believe this is focused at like 48 millimeters, basically 50 millimeters. So that's what I'm using. That's the setup. Now, you'd be surprised because, well, 50 millimeters, that's right in that nice mid-range, close to the end, but mid-range. It's not on either end of the spectrum, so there shouldn't be too much distortion. But this lens does experience some distortion, so let's investigate as to, well, first of all, where is it? And it's on the edges, and what I like to do to kind of be able to see all this is I use the edge of the screen as a guide. So if I were to stick this corner into the corner of the screen, the corner of the cabinet, into the corner of the screen, and follow it up and look at how much it bows. The same thing happens if I move over to the corner right here, and you can see, once again, doesn't happen as much towards the ceiling. Well, it does over here. I was going to say with the cabinet, you can see it happens there, but over here it doesn't happen as much because it's pulled away farther. Happens over here too, and you can clearly see it without even putting it into the corner how much it arcs. So that's our distortion issue. So what we can do is we can go over to the lens correction adjustment over here. You just start at the top, scroll on down to lens corrections. Okay, now what you want to be able to do is do one-click fix. But this isn't going to work in this case, and I'm going to explain why. One click, it didn't fix it. And you can actually see how much it didn't fix it. All the way down, it actually made it worse, and that's because it has the wrong profile. I said I'm using a 24-70 millimeter lens, and it thinks I'm using a 12-24. It's not accurate, and it's because this is a blended image, and the metadata didn't retain through the blend. And probably a user error, I haven't quite figured out how to tell it. I've told it Sigma, but I'm not presented with the options. Now, if you go over to this image, this is an image that you can see this it's the same lens, different setup, different kind of shot. It's a detail shot of cabinets. You can see how the image pulls down into this corner and to this corner. But if I were to do one-click fix, you can see already it made that straight, it made that straight, but it said Sigma, and here's the whole bank of these Sigma lenses that it thinks it could possibly be. So it got it right on this one, but it didn't get it right on the other one. Not entirely sure why, but like I said, it's probably a user error. So let's undo the enable profile correction. And what we'll do is we'll go into the manual correction where we can fix this ourselves. So, like I said, let's look at this corner. Sorry, this corner right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of minus distortion. And, well, by the way, if you were to go up, you can pull it in. And if you were to go down, you could pull it out. Now, the thing is, you don't want to overdo it. And these are very, very minor adjustments that you should be making, because when you start to pull these pixels out, it will start to show. So, like, as you can see, that doesn't look good. Well, it doesn't look good in the first place, but you can see how much it has to stretch an image. So we're talking minute adjustments, and what we're going to do is minus 7, pulling it to the left and it's jumping a little bit. -7 is too much, but 0 is not enough. And when I was doing this earlier, I liked between 3 and 4. -3 is right around there, and if I were to put my guide, my man-made guide there, it would be pretty good. It's not perfect. If I'm in the corner, it's not perfect. But what happens is it starts to bow out in the center. For example, if I liked -9, and if I were to put my guide right here, let's put it right here so we can see a little bit higher. It starts to bow, and I'll do it on the edge of this cabinet right there. Starts to bow. You can see that corner, but you can't see the middle. So, and especially starts to bow over here on the left-hand side. So you can easily overdo it. So like I said, I liked -3. Let's go with -4. -4 is a pretty good setting. It's not perfect, right? So there we go. I'm looking at my guide. Okay. Now, it's not done yet because I never intended in the first place, when I take an image like this, I never intend to keep 100% on the corners. You got to remember, your corners are the weakest parts, and I actually don't want them for the composition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crop it in. Oh, sorry about that. And I am going to hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to bring in everything from the sides. And I'm going to shift it over a tiny, tiny bit. Now that just about does it. Now, it's not perfect, like I said. So if I were to come over here, stick this back in the corner, it's going to be better, but it's not going to be perfect. So once again, stick that right in the corner. Follow it up. You still do see some of the green of the wall, and it's not perfect. Oh, all right. I've already said that 100 times. It's not perfect, but it helps. Now, the other thing is, you can see some of this vignetting, and what we do is we go ahead and we add plus amounts to it. And that should make the cabinet tone a little bit more fluid in terms of tone. Okay, so here's it off, and here's it on. Once again, before the lens correction and after. Now, this image didn't suffer from too many, well, it didn't suffer from any vertical adjustments, but if it did, you can easily, if I had the camera pointed up or pointed down by accident, easily fix it by pulling it out. Of course, that's exaggerating. Same with left and right, the horizontal adjustments. Again, exaggerating. And you can rotate and scale the image as well. But something I didn't mention at the very beginning of when you fix these things, especially the vertical corrections, like I said, this one didn't suffer from, so you don't have to worry about that. You always have to pick a point, preferably in the center, which has to remain straight. So in the center here, I'm looking at, I'm going to say this cabinet line in the middle. That has got to be almost 100% straight, and that's why I put it up against this bar on the side here. Let's that go away. But if the verticals were not straight, you'd have to line that up first before you start making any of these adjustments. Otherwise, things get a little messy. So like I said, make sure your vertical and horizontal things are, make sure you pick a vertical point, and then you can start to make your adjustments. But we didn't have to start there because things looked pretty good to begin with. So that's it. That's lens corrections in Lightroom 3, just a brief overview. And I say download the free trial and experiment with it. You may like what you see. Well, thanks for listening. Have a good one.